everybody, welcome back. So today I'm doing my weekly reading update for September 12th. So these are the books that I finished, the ones that I'm currently reading, and what I'm going to pick up next. I finished 5 books this week, so I did okay. I had some other things going on, so I think there were some things that got in the way of reading a little bit more, and some of them were a little bit longer. But I did pretty good. So the first book that I finished was Shadowrise by Ted Williams, and the series is certainly getting better as the books go along. This is a fantasy series. Ted Williams wrote another series, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and this has got some very similar concepts and ideas in it. There's the Fae, and they were beaten by humans and sent back to the Shadowlands, and now they've decided that they want their lands back. And not all of them are kind of on board with this. There are some that are still kind of supporting humanity, or they don't want a war again, and they're trying to work with some of the humans to prevent this war. It's not going as well as you'd like, as well as everyone would like. And then you have the twins, Bryony and Byron, and they have been left in charge of their castle. Their father's been imprisoned, their brother's been murdered, and they have been driven from the castle by their enemies, and people are trying to take over their lands, and they want to get it back. So there's some political intrigue going on. There's fighting the Fae, the Carr. So far it's really good. This one is getting really interesting. We have uncovered some secrets where I'm discovering like more of what's going on in the world. Great. No One Cares About Crazy People, The Chaos and Heartbreak of Mental Health in America by Ron Powers. And this was a man's journey through the mental health system as he's struggling with both of his sons being diagnosed with schizophrenia. It was quite heartbreaking. One of his sons did die because he could not receive treatment and would not take his medication. So he talks about how we treat people with mental health problems in America, whether or not it's ethical, the way that they're being treated. So this was, it was pretty heartbreaking. There were some kind of logistical problems. The book was set up a little strangely. I mean, look at things really interesting, but he'll kind of swap back and forth from, like, this is the way that we've done things in the past, this is the way we do things now. And so it's kind of like all over the place. And sometimes, like, when he's trying to get into medication and how medication works, he doesn't really fully explore, like, if it's helpful or useful, or if what symptoms it treats, which it only treats some symptoms of schizophrenia. It does not treat them all. But he does kind of advocate for medication as far as like better ways to administer it, so that people with mental health problems are more likely to get the medication they need. They're a group of people who tend not to take their medication. So that one, heartbreaking. But it was still pretty good. It had just some minor problems as far as not fully exploring certain areas of the mental health system. The next one was a cookbook. It was the William-Sonoma Salad for the Day, 365 Recipes for Every Day of the Year by Georgeanne Brennon. And this was, obviously this was a cookbook, and it was a salad cookbook, and it had a lot of good things in it, but there was a lot of repetitiveness. You know, like they'd have a kind of a basic salad with like spinach, something like that, and then the only thing that would be different would be the type of oil and the type of nut that you would use on it. So other than that, it was fine, but it was kind of annoying it being as repetitive as it was. The fourth one that I finished was Worldbinder by David Farland. This is the 6th book in the Runelord series, and this one has kind of taken a new turn. I guess this has to do with the new second kind of generation, the second group of books in the world. And this one follows the children of the people from the first 4, and now we've kind of gotten to where we're discovering that this world is a little bit bigger, and it's like it's one world in many. So we have some kind of like portal fantasy introduction in this world, which has kind of changed a whole lot of the dynamics of the world. So it's been quite interesting. The last book that I picked up, number 5, was The Alienist by Caleb Carr. I started this and finished it this week. And this takes place in the 1890s. We have the alienist, who is, we would call him now as a psychologist. He studies the mind, works in an insane asylum, and he's trying to solve a string of murders committed by a serial killer, by what we would call a serial killer in our days. Yes, there were serial killers back then. We have H.H. Holmes. We have another guy Albert Fish. So it was kind of brought some of those aspects into it, and they were using what we would call as criminal profiling to try and catch this killer. So this was supposed to be modern usage of, or what we would consider like more modern applications of criminology to a time before they did that. So there was one thing that I kind of struggled with this, was that it was a little bit too progressive. The mental health system at that time was not how it was portrayed. Obviously, criminology was not how it was portrayed. I don't mind when they try to kind of like put one or two things from that we use now into the book, as far as like, ooh, what if this was the way that it was then? But I felt like it was a little bit overload. First of all, the people who were being murdered were not people that really would have gotten much attention for being murdered, because they were kind of considered on the outskirts of society. So I don't know how much effort would have been actually put in if this was reality, into solving those murders. The characters were a little bit too progressive in the ways of thinking and everything that kind of didn't fit with the time period. And yes, there was some mental health reform going on then, but it wasn't, the reforms were kind of sketchy still, and they did not improve mental health a whole lot. So those are all the books that I finished this week. So now I'll get into the books that I'm currently reading. So currently I am finishing up Luxe by Brennon, Sanderson, and Stephen Bohls. And this is the first book in the Texas Reckoners, which is an offshoot from the Reckoner series. In this world, a Red Star calamity has come, and it has given people certain superhero abilities, and it has corrupted them, so they have all become super villains. And we are following a group of Reckoners in Texas, who are trying to bring down Luxe, which is this giant floating city that is, I should finish that today. The next book that I'm reading is Legacy of Ash. This is the first book in the Legacy trilogy by Matthew Ward, and this is a fantasy, a bunch of kingdoms that have been living in a time of peace, and now like the younger generation has decided that maybe they want to expand their kingdoms, and so some warring has started amongst them and amongst these kingdoms, and they're trying to find a way to solve this problem. The next one that I'm listening to on audiobook is Of Sea and Shadow by Will Wight, and this is the first book in the Elder Empire. This is kind of like a seafaring adventure. We've kind of just gotten into like what it is that they're after and what it is they're looking for and why it's important. But it's a fantasy. The way that the magic works is that you have an object and you give it the ability to do its job better. So they give the ships the ability to sail better. And you can do this like with any object. So it's been kind of interesting. It's fun to see. And the next one that I just picked up was Furies of Calderon by Jim Butcher. This is the first book in the Codex Alera series, and I just started it. It's about Romans and Pokemon, or it's a fantasy series that was based on those. So it's kind of different, and I expect it'll be different than the Dresden Files. So those are the books that I'm currently reading. There's 4 of them, and I'm almost done with a couple of them. So here's the things I'm planning to pick up next. So after I'm done with Sea of Shadow, which again I should be done with it today or tomorrow, I'll pick up the Wyrmling Horde by David Farland. This is the Rune Lords. This is the 7th book in the Rune Lord series. When I'm done with Luxe, which should be today, and I should pick this up today, is called Master of Sorrows by Travis Call, and this is the 1st book in the Silent God series. I guess this is kind of the chosen one, but with a twist. Instead of being like the hero, he's going to be the villain. And then after Legacy of Ash, which I should finish that this week, I'm getting pretty close on it, I'll pick up Deadly Waters by Hutchinson, and this is kind of a serial killer. I don't know if it'll have the investigation in it or not, but this is kind of a serial killer novel. And then if I finish Furies of Calderon, which I may or not, it's kind of a little bit longer, so it might take me a minute, I'll pick up Wicked Stains by Emily Duncan, and this is the 1st book in the Something Dark and Holy series. It's a YA fantasy, so I'm sure it'll have like some mystery, some magic. I believe there's a girl who talks to the gods. Okay, so alright, so that's my weekly wrap-up video for September 12th. Those are the books that I finished, the ones that I'm currently reading, and what I plan to pick up next. So if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.